Thank you. This is really a big deal. But I got to say, the next man here, we all know, and you don't need me to tell you about what Bernie's done. But I do want to make an observation about what he's doing. I mean, what he's done is he's changed the debate in this country about what issues are important. And those issues that are so important all have to do with providing some economic security and peace of mind and emotional stability to everyday folks who are in red states and blue states. But Bernie has taken his stature, earned in that last presidential race, and he's become a unifier.
Yes.
He has been doing, He's been doing these rallies around the state. He's getting progressives and Democrats together, unified in their goal of a better Vermont. He's been taking that message around the country, pulling people together. And we need unity more than ever. And the person who is doing the most in this country to bring us together so that we can succeed together is the man you are about to hear from, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you all very much for being out today. And the thing about Peter Welch is he gets better as he gets older. I've been listening to Peter for 20 years. He's better today than he was then. And I want to thank Beth and TJ and Christine and David as well. And our job on Tuesday is to do everything that we can to elect all of them to office and make Vermont the progressive leader in the United States of America. As Peter indicated, I have not only been all over Vermont, and tonight we're going to have a great rally in Burlington. We hope you'll come, and going to New Hampshire to see if we can get the vote up there as well. But by tonight, I will have been to 13 states, doing 35 rallies in the last 2 weeks. And the reason that I am doing that is that I believe, as Peter and everybody else here has said, it is absolutely imperative that we end one-party, right-wing rule in Washington, D.C. Today in the House and the Senate, you have right-wing extremists who on virtually every single issue are doing exactly the opposite of what the American people want. Poll after poll now shows us that the fight that we have been waging in Vermont for a very long time, the fight that says health care is a right, not a privilege, that concept is sweeping the country. And if you want to know why Donald Trump is out there every day lying about Medicare for all and what it will do, the reason is that he has seen the same polls that you have seen and I have seen. 70% of the American people believe in Medicare for all. And Donald Trump also understands that the American people are not happy about their major accomplishment in Washington, giving $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. And what the American people understand, that at a time of grotesque income and wealth inequality, when 3 of the wealthiest people in this country own more wealth than the bottom half of America, we're not going to give tax breaks to large, profitable corporations, and the wealthiest people in America, we're going to demand that they start paying their fair share of taxes. and his friends understand that the American people do not support his budget priorities, which call for massive cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and the Social Security Disability Fund. But speaking here in the Montpelier Senior Center, we know that our job is not to cut Social Security or Medicare. Our job is to expand Social Security. I honestly don't know how people can do it, but there are millions of seniors in this country who are trying to get by on $13,000 or $14,000 a year. How do you keep your home warm? How do you put gas in the car? How do you pay for the medicine that you need? And the answer is many of these seniors do not. And that's why we have legislation in which lifts the cap and expands Social Security benefit and extends the life of Social Security for 60 years. Just the other day, a guy named Larry Kudlow, you've heard of Larry, one of Trump's key economic advisors, told us what a terrible idea the concept of a federal minimum wage is. $7.25, I guess, is just too high a minimum wage for Larry. They want to get rid of the concept of the minimum wage. But all over this country, people understand that you cannot make it a $9–10 an hour, which is why more and more folks are demanding that we raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. As Peter indicated, one of the serious, it's more than serious, one of the existential, I think, problems that we face is that we are dealing with a president who is a pathological liar. And that makes political discourse very, very difficult. I am often asked, if I go on television, somebody says, what do you think about what President Trump said? And I said, not much, because I expect he'll probably change his view tomorrow, which is, most of the time, right. All right. So we're dealing with somebody who lies about everything. Let me give you an example of a real whopper, which not only impacts America, but impacts the entire world. He was asked a few weeks ago on TV, somebody asked him about climate change. What do you think about climate change? He said, well, there are differences of opinion about climate change. There are not differences of opinion about climate change. The scientific community is 100% united in understanding that climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Climate change is already doing devastating harm in this country and around the world. Did some of you receive the report that came out a few weeks ago from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? Anyone see that? You know what they said? These are scientists who are bringing studies from around the world together. And what they said, we got 12 years. 12 years to get our act together to significantly reduce carbon emissions, or the damage to our planet will be irreparable, and the planet we're going to leave these beautiful young children will be increasingly unhealthy and unlivable. And you got a man in the White House who not only is a pathological liar, but who rejects science. And it was working hand in glove with the fossil fuel industry so they could squeeze out their last few $1 billion in profits in destroying this planet. Right? So what we are up against is a remarkable moment in American history. We have a corrupt campaign finance system which is already pouring. How much money, David, is coming in against you?
Out of state, $230,000.
Who's this coming from? Folks in Montpelier or Burlington?
Some oil folks in Montpelier and Chittenden County, but the out-of-state is from the corporate PACs, the Koch brothers, the pharmaceuticals.
This is just a little state running for lieutenant governor. Okay. All over this country, people are turning on their TVs today, seeing the most outrageous and ugly and dishonest 30-second ads paid for by a handful of billionaires. That's where we are evolving as a nation in terms of our political system. So when we talk about revitalizing American democracy, which is the most important thing that we can do, we are talking about overturning this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And we are talking about moving to public funding of elections. This is enormously important. We cannot allow incredibly greedy and destructive billionaires to determine the future of American democracy in every state in this country. So the point that I'm making, I want to pick up on what Peter said a moment ago, is that on virtually every major issue facing this country, there is not, despite what the media will tell you, huge divisions. People believe in health care for all. People believe in raising the minimum wage to a living wage. People believe that women should receive equal pay for equal work. People do not believe that we should overturn Roe versus Wade. 70% of the American people do not believe we should overturn Roe v. Wade. People believe in sensible gun safety legislation. This is not Bernie Sanders or Peter or Dave or anybody else. This is what the American people believe. While we have a president who is demonizing immigrants, 80% of the American people believe we should have legal protection for the young people in the DACA program. And a majority of the American people believe we need comprehensive immigration reform. And you have conservatives out there who understand, conservatives who understand that our criminal justice system is broken and that it is insane that we have more people in jail. Boy, I'm not a problem with the electricity there. More people in jail than any other country on earth. And that instead of investing in jails and incarceration, we should be investing in schools and jobs. So the point is that actually there are differences of opinion, no question about it. But we are much more united than the general perception is that the media gives us. And what we have got to do is come up with an agenda that speaks to all people. Nobody in America believes that the pharmaceutical industry can be trusted for 1 second. Whether you're a conservative, whether you're a progressive, you understand you're being ripped off by these drug companies who charge us the highest prices in the world. So what we have got to do is come up with an agenda that in fact says to the people in Oklahoma and in Montana, we can stand together to take on Wall Street, we can take on the drug companies, we can take on the insurance companies, we can create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. And those ideas are not just Vermont ideas now, they're resonating all across this country. And that's what we've got to do. But the second issue, and I know I'm picking up on a point that others have made as well, is that this is an unprecedented moment in American history because we have a president who, in my view, is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. And what we are fighting for is not just health care for all. We're not just fighting to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. We're not just fighting for progressive tax reform. We are fighting to retain American democracy. That's what we're fighting. And what this president is doing is so ugly that it's hard to imagine that we have a president who would do this. What he is trying to do, in a way no president in modern history has done, is trying to divide our people up based on the color of their skin, based on where they came from, based on their sexual orientation, based on their religion. That's what he is trying to do. And I want to give you an example of how extreme this president is. I was no great friend of George W. Bush. All right, Bush got us into Iraq. Bush gave tax breaks to the rich. Bush was no great political friend of mine. But I want you all to remember, what did Bush do after the 9/11 attacks? Remember what he did a couple of days after? He went to visit a mosque. Here was a conservative Republican president who said that we were shamefully attacked by a handful of murderers and terrorists. It was not the Muslim people who attacked us, it was a handful of terrorists. That's what George W. Bush did, compared to what Donald Trump is doing. This country, as everybody in this room knows, throughout our history, has had to deal with some terrible things. We've had to deal with what settlers did to the Native Americans, and are still doing to Native Americans. We have to deal with the horrors of slavery and segregation. 100 years ago in America, the kids don't know this, women did not have the right to vote. Women were not going to the University of Vermont. Women were not getting the jobs they wanted to get. They were third-class citizens in America. We all know the history of our brothers and sisters in the LGBT community and the suffering they had to go through by suppressing their sexuality. We know about the religious bigotry. 100 years ago, Catholics in Burlington, Vermont were not able to work in banks. Enormous prejudice against the French Canadians in this state. Okay? Prejudice against the Italians and the Irish and the Jews and the Asians all over America. That is part of the history of America. But the other part of the history of America is that throughout that whole period, extraordinarily brave people put their lives on the line to talk about a common humanity. Whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, or Jew, you have common hopes for your children. Whether you're black or you're white or you're gay or you're straight, you want your kids to be drinking clean water and to have a good education and decent jobs. And the push and the pull of American politics and politics all over the world has been those people who want to divide us up and those people who want to bring us together. And that is where we are at this moment, and that is where we are going to be this coming Tuesday. This is the most important midterm election in the modern history of the United States of America. And it deals not only with all of the economic and environmental and healthcare issues, it deals with something deeper. It deals with who we are as a people. Are we a common humanity, or are we going to allow our president to divide us up on superficial bases? So please, what I beg of you is this coming Tuesday, if you haven't voted, you've got to make it out to the polls. But not only do that. 4 years ago, as everybody up here will remember, shamefully, we had the lowest voter turnout in Vermont and in America since World War II. And I want to congratulate, by the way, our legislature and Jim Condos for moving this state significantly forward in opening up the political process, making it easier for people to vote. While Republican governors all over this country are trying to suppress the vote, in this state, we're saying we want people to vote in large numbers. And we've got to take advantage of this. So what I'm begging of people is not only make sure you come out and vote, but bring your friends and your family members and your co-workers. 4 years ago, we had the lowest voter turnout since World War II. On Tuesday, when the Secretary of State counts those votes, let us see if we can have the highest voter turnout in modern Vermont history. Thank you all very much.